My name is Bob Brucker, and we have Barbara Boyer, our Executive Director, on as well. And we welcome you to our 34th educational webinar of AgeWise Colorado. And today's topic is food as medicine, which is a discussion of better eating and how it may help you reduce your prescription medications. Our panelists today, and this is just a short introduction, I'll get into a longer one here in a few minutes. First, we have Astrid Dela Cruz, who serves as the Nutrition Services Manager at Project Angel Heart, which is a local nonprofit that prepares and delivers medically tailored meals to people living with severe illnesses. And Olga Garcia serves with the Denver Office on Aging, where she is both the Denver Connect administrator and a facilitator with Fresh Conversations. A little bit about who we are and what we do. We are working to become the premier nonprofit information and vetted service provider hub for aging Coloradans and current and future caregivers. We focus on this because our population is aging quickly. As you can see from this chart, last year, the 60 plus population exceeded the under 18 population for the first time. And that population continues to increase. And then our 45 to 59 population is also increasing about the same rate. So we have a lot of issues to deal with our older population and the aging in particular. And there are innumerable opportunities to get involved in those things. We are the second fastest aging state in the country, based on the last census, where our 65 plus population in these dark purple counties exceeded a 60% growth rate. This is very surprising to almost everybody that I show this to, because the typical reaction is, well, what about Florida? Well, Florida has definitely more people, but the percentage increase is different. And then we focus on two groups of people: the sandwich generation, which is, we call it 40 plus, but it could be even 30s, in some cases. Folks who are, have a career, maybe they have kids, and then they have older family members that may need some assistance. And then we have the older folks as well. So that's about 3 million people in the state of Colorado, which is over half of our population. We serve aging Coloradans and caregivers and adult children, employers, vetted service providers, and all organizations committed to healthy aging Coloradans. This is a screenshot from our website. If you go to our website, you'll find this. You click on any one of these, and it provides a drop-down menu of additional subcategories. We do encourage you to visit the website. And then today is our last webinar until August, and we haven't decided what we're going to do in August yet, but we'll be doing that pretty soon. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and flip it back over and introduce our first panelists. And that is Astrid Dela Cruz. And Astrid grew up in Wisconsin and earned her BS degree in nutrition and dietetics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, became credentialed as a registered dietitian nutritionist here in Colorado. And Astrid is passionate about serving vulnerable and underrepresented communities by advocating for nutrition education and accessibility to nourishing food. It's her belief that nutritious food is a right and a powerful tool to prevent and manage chronic disease while improving quality of life. A long-term goal is to build resilient, healthy, and self-sustaining communities by empowering others to live meaningful and wholesome lives, no matter their medical, cultural, or economic background. As I said earlier, she currently holds the Nutrition Services Manager at Project Angel Heart. So now Astrid is going to tell us more about Project Angel Heart and what she does there. So go ahead, Astrid. Thank you for joining us today.
Great. Yeah. So, yes, thanks for the introduction. My name is Astra Dela Cruz. I am a registered dietitian and nutrition services manager at Project Angel Heart, and I have been with Project Angel Heart for about 2 years now. So, a little bit more about Project Angel Heart. So, we are a nonprofit that provides medically tailored meals to folks living with severe illness here in Colorado. Our services cover any age and income, and our delivery areas cover more than 1,600 square miles and include Denver Metro, Boulder, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and we recently expanded into Longmont and Brighton in the northern part of the state. Our goal is to serve about 75% of the Front Range urban corridor by 2025, which we are on track to do. The meals that we provide are completely free to our clients. This year, we'll prepare and deliver about 700,000 meals to about 5,000 neighbors in need. So, just to give you a little bit of background. We have been at a few different locations in Denver, but we have been located on Washington Street in the Globeville and Elmira Swansea neighborhood, right off of I-70 since about 2011. And we have been around for about 30 years, so pretty well established. I'm always surprised. I'm relatively new to Project Angel Heart, like I said, about 2 years, and I'm always surprised by how many people know about us in the community. So that always feels really just heartwarming. So I wanted to start with a client story because this really helps put a face and a name to the work that we do and the impact that we have in our community. So this is Stephanie, one of our clients. She gave us permission to share her story. So Stephanie was misdiagnosed with cerebral palsy in her youth. And when she was 20, she discovered that the correct diagnosis for the leg weakness and the spasticity that she'd experienced her whole life was actually familial spastic paraplegia, or FSP. FSP is a hereditary degenerative neurological disorder that worsens over time and eventually leads to paralysis. So Stephanie went from being able to walk on her own to using a walker, and now she depends on a wheelchair. She is divorced. She has no family support system nearby. And with her degenerative neurological disorder, cooking is very difficult. In one such instance, she was trying to cook for herself and she injured herself while trying to use the stovetop and the oven. And so she had to rely on TV dinners to feed herself for a while there. Stephanie's sodium levels skyrocketed, leading to cardiovascular concerns on top of the FSP. When her doctor became concerned about her elevated sodium or salt levels, they recommended Project Angel Heart. And Stephanie now receives heart healthy, low sodium meals from us. So in 5 short months, Stephanie's health has improved dramatically. She noted that her salt values improved while her feet and ankles were no longer swollen. She loves the low sodium meals that we provide, and she does credit Project Angel Heart with helping her continue to be able to live independently in her home. It's really important for her to be able to continue to live independently since she does not have much of a support system. Here in Colorado. And Stephanie's story is not uncommon. And being able to provide this service truly makes a world of difference for a lot of our clients. So I did want to start with sharing this story. So our work is primarily focused on improving health through nutrition. So we do this by providing meals that are nutritionally modified depending on the disease and the side effects that that particular client may be living with. The meals that we make can be modified about 12 different ways in order to accommodate the dietary needs of the client. And we do have the capacity to offer about 250 different combinations of those 12 modifications. And I'll dive a little bit more into what that really means. But that's a lot of tailoring that happens in our kitchen every single day. So about 1 in 3 people in the US with chronic illness cannot afford food, medicine, or both. And they often face a really hard situation of choosing between food and medicine on a regular basis. So Project Angel Heart focuses on the input of food and nutrition on health outcomes. So when someone doesn't have access to healthy food, we do see significantly less adherence to their medical health regimens. We see slower healing and recovery from an illness. We see increased medical and surgical complications, longer hospital stays, increased readmission rates, higher use of long-term care facilities or rehab facilities. We see an impact on mental health, an increased severity of chronic disease and mortality. And all of this, of course, leads to increased health costs. We know that food is important. People who are malnourished miss more of their doctor's visits. They spend about 3 times more time in the hospital. Their inpatient expenses are about 3 times as high, and they are twice as likely to be rehospitalized after being discharged than well-nourished people. And the risk of malnutrition also increases for folks over the age of 65. So we definitely know that nutrition makes a huge difference. Through our surveys that we administer to our clients on a regular basis, they tell us that our meals help with adherence to their healthcare plans. It helps them afford their basic needs. They help, like, Stephanie's story, they help our clients remain independent in their homes and improves their overall quality of life. I know I had mentioned decreased healthcare costs in the previous slide, so let's take a deeper look at some of the research to determine exactly how much of a cost reduction we see from meal services like ours. So we wanted to know if providing medically tailored meals to people living with severe illnesses helped reduce healthcare costs. So in 2018, we completed a research study looking at healthcare costs 6 months before meals, during meals, and then 6 months after meal services ended. And we compared it to folks with similar diseases or health conditions who had not received our meals. So we learned that medically tailored meals really do work. People who received our meals had a 13% reduction in a 30-day readmissions rate, and there was a 24% cost reduction for people with chronic heart failure, COPD, or chronic pulmonary disease, and diabetes. We also saw reduced inpatient costs for participants as well. So to give you an idea of the impact, clients that we served in 2018 who had a diagnosis of congestive heart failure, COPD, and diabetes with an average of 5 months on service saved an estimated $4.2 million in healthcare costs. And there's a lot more detail on this research on our website as well. So if you are interested in more of the data and the research behind our meals, definitely go and take a look. There's a link here on the slide as well. So let's talk a little bit about our delivery area. So we deliver in the Denver metro areas, like I mentioned before, in Boulder, Longmont, and Brighton. In the southern part of the state, we're in Colorado Springs and Pueblo. But through our healthcare contract partnerships, we have the ability to send out overnight packages of medically tailored meals in the more rural areas across the state. The recipients of our shipped meals get their delivery within 24 to 48 hours. So really, we deliver to other areas across the state outside of these boundary lines outlined in black. So we do have a big impact across the state. All of our meals across the board are low salt, heart healthy, and diabetes friendly, but I thought we could talk a little bit about what our 5 main meal plans are and the sort of the main illnesses that we serve. So our first meal plan here is the heart healthy option. And of course, for these meals, we're taking a close look at healthy fats, at lean protein, whole grains. 1 to 2 cups of vegetables per tray. And of course, they're going to be low in salt as well. We've got our renal or our kidney specific meal plan. For this one, we are limiting dairy just because these are items that are higher in potassium and phosphorus, and folks with kidney disease oftentimes have to watch those nutrients. They're also lower in dried fruit, low salt, no soy products, again, because they're higher in potassium and phosphorus. Overall, we're kind of looking for a low potassium and low phosphorus meal plan here. For our allergen friendly, we just limit eggs and dairy since those are 2 very common allergens that we see. We do offer an unseasoned diet. This one does not contain any strong seasonings or flavorings, so no garlic, no onion, no ginger, peppers, tomatoes, spices, anything that would be considered strongly flavored. This one can be a really good option for folks who might be experiencing altered taste or mouth sores, either from their diagnosis or from their treatment. For example, chemo is a good example of that. We also offer a vegetarian diet. This one does not contain any animal or any meats, but it does contain some other animal protein. So we do still include eggs, cheese, dairy. We do use soy products in this meal plan, as well as prioritizing beans, legumes, grains, but just no meat or fish. We can also further modify the meals or tailor them based on specific restrictions. So for example, we can provide gluten-friendly meals. We can remove hard to digest vegetables like beans or cabbage for folks who have digestion issues. We can omit proteins like beef or pork for religious reasons or just dietary preference. Maybe the client is avoiding red meat for heart health reasons. So we have the ability to make these different modifications. And when you take all of those different modifications into account, paired with the main 5 meal plan options, that's when we have the ability to create, about 250 different combinations of the different meal plans with restrictions. And the main illnesses that we serve include things like cancer, heart disease, kidney disease, and HIV/AIDS, as well as pulmonary conditions. So just to give you an idea of our client population, sort of the things that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So here is a bit of a sample menu. We recently launched our medically tailored breakfast just this year. And so we started sending out in-house made breakfast items, whereas before we were relying on more packaged things like cereals and oatmeals. And there's definitely a time and a place for all of those foods. But we are essentially a kitchen. And so we wanted to be able to provide the same amount of care and attention to our breakfast items as we work to our other meals. So we did start sending out, breakfast items that we're cooking in-house, and that's a photo of those items there. But just to give you an example, so for the breakfast, they might receive overnight oatmeal or breakfast tacos or a berry yogurt bowl. Some of the entrees, herb baked chicken with roasted garlic sauce and rice pilaf, or teriyaki chicken with brown rice, or a baked fish with white wine sauce and split peas. Those are just some examples. We have a lot of different items that we rotate. So, we try to prioritize variety, definitely. And then we do also send out some additional side items in their meal bags, things like bread, string cheese, peanut butter, and fruit, to give you some examples there. We do also offer other nutrition offerings. These might include things like telehealth, so nutrition education and counseling with myself or Zachary, who is our second or our other dietitian here on staff. We offer monthly nutrition support groups that are virtual for our clients and their caregivers. So that's a really good opportunity to get to connect with some of our clients and their caregivers in a different way and see their faces. It's not in person, but it's still different than just talking to them over the phone. We send out nutrition guides and recipes. These are offered in both English and Spanish, and The nutrition guides are mostly of our main illnesses. So things like cancer, HIV/AIDS, heart failure. We have what we call a nutrition guide. That's a little bit more in-depth pamphlet on their condition and nutrition considerations for that. We also provide a monthly nutrition flyer on a variety of different topics, and we print these out and add them into their meal bags so that they have some nutrition education to read that week. And again, these are both in English and Spanish. So through a recent study that we actually conducted this past year with a healthcare partner of ours, we learned that many of the study participants indicated not having received any nutrition education and counseling before joining our services. And they also reported greater satisfaction in our program overall when they did engage in these offerings. So we think it's definitely important to ensure that all of our clients have access to nutrition education and counseling alongside our meals. We think that paired together, they can have a much bigger impact because hopefully it allows clients to learn a little bit more about their specific situation, how they can navigate their illness through nutrition, and hopefully pass on some of this information to their families, their communities, and just have a bigger impact than just themselves. So a large portion of our clients are age 60 and over, and so we do pay a lot of attention to recommendations for aging well. We are not providing a full day's worth of nutrition. Therefore, it's always important for us to empower our clients with this information so that they can support their nutrition with other foods that they eat throughout the day, as well as with any supplements that they might be taking. So here are just some examples of things that we pay attention to while creating the recipes of our meals, as well as during our education and counseling sessions with our clients. So we're looking at foods rich in vitamin D and calcium. So things like yogurt, fish, sardines, salmon, trout, those types of fish. All of these can help keep bones strong and prevent or delay osteoporosis. So we're paying attention to bone health. Fiber from plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grains will support digestion and keep our bowel movements regular. And so we also pay attention to that. Meat, seafood, eggs, legumes like beans, lentils, peas, those types of foods are all good sources of protein, which is very important for maintaining strength, muscle mass, bone strength as we age. And so we're definitely touching on this with our clients who are age really 50 and over. Vitamin B12 becomes more of a challenge as we age because it's not well absorbed. So it can help to include vitamin B12 rich food sources in the diet, which happen to be protein rich foods like meats, seafood, eggs, dairy products, just to provide some examples. And then, of course, some other tips that are a little more lifestyle related, things like staying well hydrated, paying attention to our immune systems, engaging in physical activity as we're able, sleeping well, stress management, and of course, engaging in social activities that prevent isolation. Isolation is huge for the older population, and we do hear that from a lot of our clients. They have low motivation to cook, to prepare meals, but even to eat, to sit down and eat when they are feeling isolated. And so having conversations with our clients on how they can not only make their own environment a little bit more pleasant at mealtime, but, maybe trying to call up friends during mealtime to chat and feel like they have more of a community, even if it's not in person. So all of these little tips can really help make some of our clients feel less isolated, and it helps them eat better, which is really important. So here's some information on eligibility. I'm sure you all will have questions about that. So who qualifies? Basically anyone with a severe illness. Our organization is not income or age restricted. what do services look like? So again, we send out those 7 entrees plus sides and breakfast meals for qualifying clients, plus the additional nutrition education and counseling offerings that I mentioned on the last slide. So whether that be telehealth on the phone or these virtual nutrition support groups. Where, again, we currently deliver in Denver Metro, Boulder, Brighton, Longmont, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and hoping to continue to expand. Deliveries are made weekly by volunteers, or we might be able to ship out to more rural areas in Colorado. And how do we apply for services? So usually the client or the applicant is working with their healthcare provider. They complete an application, which is available online on our website at projectangelheart.org, or we can email you an application and you can fax it back to us completed. And then we would reach out to the client and let them know if they qualify for services. And then set them up and let them know sort of the timeline of when they can expect their first delivery. We do have about a 6 to 8 week wait list currently, which speaks to the high need, right? There's definitely a need for these types of services in our communities. And, you know, we have been able to reduce that wait list over the last 2 years. We didn't have a wait list at all. And then I think as need continues to increase, there have been times where we needed to go back to using a wait list. So that does vary. Sometimes it's a 3-week wait list. Sometimes it's a no wait list. And so it just depends on the particular demand when the applicant is filling out the application. Our client services team is amazing. And if there are questions about who qualifies, the application process, anything like that, we always encourage folks to call them. Lastly, I did want to touch on volunteers just because they are such a huge part of what we do. We honestly couldn't do what we do without them. Last year, about 7,700 volunteers provided about 5,700 hours of service. We have a significant number of volunteers who are 50 to 70 years of age or more. Many of our volunteers join us because of our mission and continue because of the social aspects, building a community between their volunteer groups and feeling less isolated. We hear really amazing stories from a lot of our volunteer groups who, you know, like this group in this photo here, they come for their dish up shift every Wednesday afternoon, and it's always the same folks, and they kind of build a little bit of a community. They go out and get happy hour drinks or a meal after their shift. And so they're very much, you know, a community of volunteers, but also of friends, and they kind of see each other and hang out outside of the time that they're in our building. And so we do help with that aspect of isolation for our volunteer groups as well as for our clients. And we are always in need of additional volunteers. So please reach out if you know of anyone who might be interested, or if you yourself are interested. There's definitely many different ways that we take volunteers, whether it be in the kitchen, helping us chop vegetables, dishing up the meals, like in this photo here. We have volunteers that help us pack the meals into our meal bags. We have delivery driver volunteers who actually take the meal bags to our clients' homes. We have volunteers who help us decorate our bags. You can kind of see some in the background here. I have some on my wall. So we have amazing, volunteer artists who put that special touch on those bags that mean the world to a lot of our clients. We hear a lot of gratitude for those. That's basically all I had in terms of high level sort of what Project Angel Heart does. And I would love to take any questions if there are any. Stop sharing.
I have a lot of questions, but I'll see if there are other people that have questions first.
I have a couple questions. Sure. How do you deal with it with people that have different medications that they can't eat certain foods because of it? And how, so since you make a large amount of food at one time, how is it that you then make those things work for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as you can imagine, medications are very tailored to the individual. Some folks might be on 5 different medications, others are on 10 or more. And so that's when that individual nutrition education and counseling comes in. It's super important for us to be able to connect with the individual client to talk through what medications they might be on, so that we might be able to identify if food is going to interact with certain medications that they might be taking. Oftentimes we will refer them back to their physician or to their pharmacist, depending on symptoms that they might be experiencing with the medication. There is so much involved there. And so we, of course, through our meals themselves, we won't be able to accommodate every medication. And so we're kind of looking at the general disease or condition from a high level and creating meals that are tailored to that. But then there becomes more of an issue of like, well, that person has very specific needs. And in order to get to the bottom of those specific needs, we need to be able to talk to that person and see what they're on and see what symptoms they're experiencing. And so I would say we're not necessarily targeting the symptoms from medications through the meals themselves. The meals are kind of targeting the illness or the condition, and then the medication becomes sort of like a secondary, what symptoms that they might be experiencing, what interactions might be happening given the medications and the food that they might be eating, or medication and medication interactions too. Sometimes one medication is giving them a symptom and they have to take a different medication to deal with that symptom from that medication. And so there is a lot of talking that is involved and just kind of trial and error of helping folks navigate their illness as well as their medications. I know that that's not a very satisfactory answer, but it's just very tailored to the individual.
Right. So let me ask a follow-up question if I can. So then when you do your counseling, is it just a one-time counseling with the person? So, because I'm thinking of people more like in the rural areas or in some in the outlying areas that might also be getting food from the food bank. And so that they know, like, you know, you can't eat, what is it? Grapefruit with, I think it's statins, those types of things. So do you go through all of that with them, or do you rely more on their healthcare providers to go through that with them?
We definitely try to do that through our initial nutrition assessment. When someone joins our services, we do try and get a very detailed intake recall from them. So we would definitely ask things like, what does a typical day look like for you? What would you typically eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks? What medications are you on? What symptoms are you experiencing? All of that information will help us understand a little bit more what that individual might be facing. And so we do rely a little bit on the healthcare provider and the information they provide us, but first and foremost, we're kind of talking to the individual. And they know their conditions in their life better than we do a lot of the times. Like, we think that we're the experts, right? But a lot of the time they're the experts in their own body. And so they know what they might be experiencing. They know the medications they're taking, how often they're taking it. And so we try to provide that initial nutrition assessment during their intake process. And then we're always available. So if they want to do a follow-up 2 weeks out, we can set that up. If they want to do a follow-up 1 month out, we can set that up. But then we would automatically flag them for a reassessment 6 months or a year of being on service. And then we would do kind of like a more thorough, sort of like as if they were joining our services for the first time.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
When you work with these folks, do you have to try to get them to actually kind of promise that they won't eat foods that counteract what you're giving them? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Food is super personal, and we definitely lead with a client-centered approach, patient-centered approach. And so while we have recommendations and while we can give them advice during our sessions, at the end of the day, we respect the client's decisions. Even if someone's coming to us with kidney disease, for example, and we do have a kidney specific diet, if they don't want to go on that diet and they would rather have our general heart healthy diet, we will respect their choice. We do believe that, again, they know their life better than we do. And quite frankly, it's kind of about thinking about it from a big picture perspective. We know that our meals are definitely going to be better than some of the other food that they might have access to. And so even if they're not going on the meals that are specifically tailored to their condition, and are going with our more general heart healthy diet, those are still going to be better, higher quality meals that are more nutrient dense than some of the other food that they could be accessing. So we'd much rather send meals that we know they're going to eat and they're going to, just find more joyful, more pleasant experience in eating them than something that's maybe more ideal for their condition, but they don't want to eat. So we just rather that they have access to nutritious food, even if it's not perfect.
How do people learn about you folks so that they can actually then make the application? How does that work?
We do work with a lot of healthcare partners, so with a lot of hospitals. So think Denver Health, Kaiser, Boulder Community Health. I mean, a lot of these different healthcare partners that we have actually refer a lot of their patients to us. So that's a huge way. Another way is just word of mouth. I mean, so many community members that had a family member who were on our services, and then they get to an age where they might benefit from the services, or they know a friend or a neighbor. And so a lot of it is also, word of mouth, or us just attending different community events to make sure that people know of us. And so it's definitely a variety of different ways that people learn about us. But I would say, yeah, definitely healthcare partners are a huge way that we receive our referrals from.
Okay. And we have another question here about how is your organization supported financially?
All kinds of ways. So definitely grants, individual donors, again, from people who benefited or who had a family member who benefited, they become lifelong donors of ours. And so we have a lot of folks who just got to benefit firsthand and wanted to support our work. Grant funding, our healthcare partnerships also provide some funding. So if we, for example, partner with a certain hospital and they refer patients back to us, there's a possibility there where they might be able to pay for meals for their patients that they referred to us. So some of those are some of the different ways. And of course, fundraising, right? We do have a whole development team who puts on a few different fundraisers throughout the year. So you might have heard of Dining Out for Life or A Taste for Life. So those are all events that we put on to raise funds for that next fiscal year. And if that's something that you're more interested in, I can definitely put you in contact with someone from our development team. I just kind of know the basics, but I wouldn't know the very specific details on that.
Okay. Well,
I have a question. I have a question too, Bob. If someone was living alone and had significant surgery, went home to heal, is there anything that you do on a temporary basis if maybe they need a meal brought in on a regular basis?
Yeah, we did. And one example that's coming to mind is COVID. So when everything was happening with COVID, we had a sort of partnership with, and I'm forgetting which healthcare provider or hospital it was, but essentially, when people were being hospitalized for COVID, we were able to provide meals for them as they went back home and recovered from that. And so we do have other instances like that where if it's a surgery or thinking of like a traumatic brain injury or something like that, that's definitely more acute. We are able to provide meals for a shorter period of time just while they're recovering from that and transitioning back to living at home after being hospitalized. So that's definitely something that we do.
Okay. Well, thank you, Astrid. I had a couple other questions, but I'll hold those for now. And what I'd like to do now is introduce Olga. So Olga.
Hello, everybody. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Project Angel Heart, and they've been in our community over 30 years. It's pretty amazing how they've grown and has been able to just support our communities, and and I just want to help them help us even more. So
So let me provide a little bit more background on you, Olga, before you start. Olga, as you can see, is very passionate about serving her community. And under the Denver Office on Aging, Human Rights and Community Partnerships, she administers the Denver Connect program, which features a mobile pop-up office that is equipped with technology tools and resources that support older adults, including affordable housing, sustainable food security, social services, and fraud prevention. In 2020, Olga joined the inaugural group of facilitators to promote Fresh Connections, which you're going to be hearing about here in a few minutes, which is a Colorado Human Services program with monthly newsletters that focus on nutrition education, healthy recipes, active living, and cognitive games and puzzles. She facilitates 3 in-person and 1 virtual group sessions in English and Spanish. And she has earned degrees from the University of Denver, CU Boulder, and an executive certification from the John F. Kennedy School of Government. So now, Olga, please proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
thank you, Bob. Let me see, with any luck, I could share my screen here. So yeah, as Bob mentioned, I'm under the Agency of Human Rights and Community Partnerships for the Denver City and County. I've been with the Office of Older Adults for about 4 years now. I can't believe it's been that long. But in the Office on Aging, our director is Perla Gaylor, who some people might know. A lot of people do, actually. And I administer a program called Denver Connect. So yeah, so under the state, of course, the Older Americans Act is what we abide by and follow. And it basically intends that the state agency on aging should be the leader relative to all aging issues on behalf of older persons in the state. Basically, what this says is it functions as the oversight for advocacy, planning, coordination, interagency linkages, information sharing, brokering, monitoring, and evaluation. And this all leads to our development and enhancement of programming, Fresh Conversations, which is one, but then there's others too. These systems shall be designed to assist older persons in leading independent, meaningful, and dignified lives in their own homes and communities for as long as possible. That's the goal always. This is an interesting slide, and I really appreciate the slide you had, Bob, around just the growth, the exponential growth of older adult community in the state of Colorado. I think we've met some of those milestones a lot quicker than originally anticipated, to be honest. This is one that is probably even outdated as fast as I put it up here. But basically, it's a 75 plus population that is forecasted to grow in Denver County alone 223% by the year 2050. Maybe we're there already, or we will be there fairly soon. But other surrounding counties to Denver, Adams County, Boulder County, Gilpin, Douglas County, 446%. That is huge, huge growth. And as you mentioned, this brings a lot of urgency to how are we going to care for our older adult population, no matter the county that we live in. So we need to lock arms basically with each other, with nonprofit organizations, and really start putting in place those tools that we can help each other whenever we need them, to be able to access them quickly and to be able to help our residents thrive in their communities. So the Denver Office on Aging, we advocate for our older population by helping Local agencies develop policies and programs that will improve the quality of life, accessibility, and positive culture for aging residents. We're fortunate enough to also have a Denver Commission on Aging. And what they do is they strive to make Denver the best community by advocating. They advocate for the rights and concerns of older adults in Denver. They empower older adults through dissemination of information, sharing community resources and services, and helping navigate systems. And then public policy. They monitor and recommend legislation and propose policy changes affecting older adults. They really do have the ear of the mayor and of all of our departments within the city that work hand in hand with older adult community. So some of our partner agencies, not just at the city, but throughout the state and other nonprofit organizations. This is just a handful of them right here real quick. The Colorado Attorney General, we help with their Stop Fraud Colorado, Dr. COG, which is the Denver Regional Council of Governments. They do case management, and they also have a terrific website that is called the Network of Care. So that's where I look whenever I run out of ideas where I can help someone. I typically will go to the Network of Care and also to AgeWise Colorado. I think AgeWise Colorado is a great directory of services as well. And that's who I recommend often to people that are calling us from 311 or from other resources that they're asking for advice. Workforce and Housing, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Parks and Rec, they have a 60+ My Denver membership that I say, go, the minute you turn 60, go get that card, because you can actually access all of the rec centers throughout Denver, and a lot of them have older adult programming, which is absolutely incredible programming that they offer. Human Services, of course, with Adult Protective Services, senior ADA and property tax relief, all of these things help reduce stress if people know where to go and where to access this. Fraud prevention, that's a huge one that we always are concerned about. And one of our my peer organizations sits right next to me. It's the Office of Financial Empowerment and Consumer Protection, and they deal with a lot of elder financial abuse as well. So this right here is typical of a flyer that we produced through the Office of Human Services, Colorado Human Services, and we just plugged in our information there for as a contact in both English and Spanish to just kind of give people an idea, what is this thing called Fresh Conversations? What kind of a newsletter could you expect to see? And typically when I'm out in the community, I'll also have extra newsletters from other months that were left over to just try to hand those out as well and encourage people to join one of our groups. I do the one for Denver. I'm currently looking for other facilitators in Denver to help facilitate the growing interest that we have just in Denver County. But of course, we are just one of many counties that have been doing this since 2020. So my peers in other municipalities across Colorado have been very successful also in offering the same monthly flyers and discussions in both Spanish and English. So I may have mentioned that it was adopted by the Iowa Department of Public Health, who had produced this and had been doing this for more than 20 years. Colorado Human Services in 2020 adopted it and made it part of our own offering. And we started it in Denver back then. We're one of the original groups, but we had to start it virtually due to the COVID shutdown. It typically is intended to be an in-person program, but we pivoted, figured out how can we do this virtually. And so we've been doing this virtually ever since. We also have we host 3 in-person sessions a month also that covers the monthly newsletter. We discuss the content And then we enjoy a healthy snack for those in person. So this is a flyer that I distribute to encourage people to join one of our groups. This is a typical Fresh Conversations newsletter, and it's really tiny, shrunk down to fit on this slide. But basically, this is one that covers the topic of processed foods. And so it's one that really I love to talk about, because processed foods are found pretty much everywhere in our daily lives. And the question is, how much processed food are we going to decide to consume? But this is basically what we do. It's a 1-hour small group discussion on nutrition, active, healthy living for older adults. And then, like I said, we do it virtually or in person in English and Spanish. And then here's the contact for me, basically, that I talk to people. Here's how you can join us in person or even on Zoom. But I love these newsletters because every one of them down below usually on at least 1 or 2 or 3 pages, it's a 4-page newsletter, will have a link. And those links are taking you to other pages, other resources for a deeper dive on the subject matter. And so I like to promote that virtually as well, or soft copies is what I'll send people. This is an example of some of the terms that we use when we're discussing the newsletters. The terms help us to get familiar with them as we go through these newsletters, and we encourage older adults to eat healthy by understanding what foods contain essential nutrients to enhance our daily lives. We often talk about ways that we can reduce added sugars, added sodium, the sodium content, saturated fats, and add healthier choices for long-term benefits. By reading labels at the grocery store, we can easily determine which foods are going to be better for us. And so we do talk a lot about food labels. And initially, it may take us, it took me a lot longer at a grocery store because I was always reading labels on various products. But now it's a very quick assessment that I can do, and many of us do, to figure out, okay, if anything is really, 5% or greater in sodium or added sugars, that's probably something I'm going to put back on the shelf and not take it. Or if it's frozen food, the same thing. What are some of those sodium levels that we're potentially going to consume if we purchase this product, take it home to our families, or consume it ourselves? So those are things that if you get used to that and it becomes a habit, it's a good habit to take over from some of the bad habits that we maybe have gotten used to doing. So this is basically just some of the grocery stores we tend to frequent in the Denver area for sure. These are some of the ways that we can virtually take a stroll through a grocery store and make our own grocery lists, so that we have it handy whenever we go to any of these grocery stores, even the farmers markets. There's a lot of offerings at the farmers markets. And of course, this program is all about SNAP Ed. So SNAP Ed is behind Fresh Conversations for sure. We want to be able to give people the resources to apply for an EBIT card if they're qualified, and use that same EBIT card at farmers markets. A lot of the farmers markets will provide a discount, a pretty heavy discount to their produce and products at farmers markets during the summer months. So that's always a flyer that I like to encourage people to take advantage of whenever possible. But the next one also shows us here what's typically on one of the back pages of this newsletter. So basically what it is, it's a recipe of the month. And there's all kinds of different recipes, of course, but it's a simple recipe that is both nutritious and tasty. And it always contains the nutrients, the proteins, calories, etc., that you could see as an example here. And then it also has a brain teaser. Something that is like a word scramble. It could be something like this, a jumbled word that people just put together, and it's related to the content in the newsletter for sure. What I like also is this take action. This month I will take action corner. So it reminds us that, okay, what is it when you write something down, right? It's typically going to stick with you more so than just saying, oh, well, I think I'll try doing better, doing this or that. When you write it down, it's actually a testimonial that you're going to do this specific action, and then we could talk about what that was next time. There's also little articles in the newspaper or in the newsletter, like this one, that talks about isolation and what we might be able to do to combat isolation, which is a huge issue, as Astrid mentioned, in our community. We want to be able to reach out to people and say, hey, can you pick me up and take me to the grocery store next time you go? Or maybe we can just check in our neighbors by just giving them a quick phone call or sending a text message or whatever it is. But it's real important to keep that front and center all the time as we try to just continue to age in place. This is the flyer I meant to mention earlier. Cooking Matters put this out, and they put out a lot of really good ones, a lot of great flyers that I include whenever I go in person. I send these out by regular snail mail to people. Whatever's timely and whatever we think will help people just have a quick access to, things like stocking your pantry, something that's simple, right? There are many beneficial ways to figure out, okay, how can I take assessment, get rid of things that maybe have expired to be able to allow new things to come in and be more savvy about replacing maybe bad foods that aren't so good for us with really good foods. And things as simple as dried fruits and nuts, for example, those are excellent snacks. And they're typically easy to make your own homemade trail mix. You can add it to cereals, baked goods, a lot of different ways that you can use these basic food pantry items to help people, remind them even ongoing that what you could do with these basic staples, right? So I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our great partners like Cooking Matters, because they've been in our community a very long time as well. Oops. Let's see if I can move on. The next one. Okay, so there's always in our newsletters something about being active, staying active. And typically I like to close our meetings with a couple of sample action steps to help think of action, something that we can do until we meet again, and then we can talk about what we did. And here's some possible ideas to consider. I'll say, I enjoy walking through my neighborhood. I'll take one extra walk this week. That's what I'm going to commit to doing. Or I eat yogurt every day. This week, I'm going to look for yogurt with less added sugars. Or I'm going to replace a recipe that calls for sour cream with Greek plain unflavored yogurt. That's in a lot of recipes. Those look for recipes that have alternate choices for ingredients. There's also a way that we talk about sometimes. I'll say, I've been feeling more lonely lately. I commit to making a phone call to an old friend to catch up this week. This is aspirational for me, this slide right here. I want to try one of these classes on Tai Chi for strengthening balance. We talk a lot about balance and fall and avoiding falls. Falls have become one of the leading causes of death, if not the leading cause of death for older adults in our country. And so anything we can do to strengthen our bone structure, maybe remove the stigma of using walkers and sticks and canes so that people can feel better about using them and stay of course, avoiding falls as a result. This is a slide that I like to promote also. It talks about the Denver Connect program. This is a flyer on the right side here that I'll pass out here and there, but it really features our funders. Number one, Dr. Cog and Stop Fraud Colorado through the Attorney General. And this is literally what the van looks like. It's a pop-up office that we can take around the community to events, special events. I go to farmers markets sometimes to basically to help bring the office to the people. It is equipped with tools on board so that if somebody needed to apply for anything on site, they could do so. They can apply for SNAP, for housing, work options. It's ADA accessible on the backside of this van so that you could literally, the ramp will help people gain access to inside the van. And it has an awning, which I love, an awning that shields people from the sun if they want to come up and talk to us. I typically will have a resource table set out with all kinds of different flyers and information that is timely, that is helpful to families, to caregivers, to older adults that may not even have thought about something, but just by looking through some of those flyers, they're able to trigger a need or a resource to a need that they or somebody they know might have. And so that's how it goes, right? We help each other and we encourage helping each other because the community is so large that there's no one agency that could possibly help everybody. We have to really work together to provide alternative resources and just meet people where they're at. So there's our website there, of course, that's on the flyer, our phone number directly. I also wanted to give a shout out to Colorado Human Services for bringing us all together on this one program, but they have a lot of fantastic programs. One of them is called Text to Live Healthy program. It's basically 2 to 3 text messages per week that are sent out by text to a cell phone by the Colorado State Unit on Aging. And they also provide a lot of healthy recipes that way too. So that's always part of my program that I make available in the community so that it's easy for people to do right on the spot. I help them do it sometimes. And then they're happy because they're able to get those reminders on a daily basis. So basically that's it for the program that I help administer. There's our contact information for myself and also for Perla. If you ever want to find out about more opportunities with our agency, Human Rights and Community Partnerships, would be happy to do that. There's a lot of people working at the city all the time to help our residents stay resourced. And this one is certainly a growing demographic group that we want to stay engaged and to offer people that comfort that they know somebody's there to help them in real time or to be able to get back to them as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you, Olga. That's great information. I'm so happy to see you and Project Angel Heart, both involved in as well as some other organizations that are not on here today, in keeping people informed about nutrition and the kind of foods that we should be eating. So I have a couple of questions related to that last statement, and that is, while we continue to try to educate folks on better eating habits, the number of restaurants continues to grow. So, which tells us that, people don't necessarily enjoy cooking or don't have time or don't think they have time. And so you go to a restaurant and a lot of times now you see on the menu how many calories something has in it. But what you don't see is how much sodium it has in it. So is there any kind of movement underway that you're aware of to encourage more restaurants to include that, because we all know sodium is the cause of a lot of health issues, even more so than the calorie part of it. So
That's a really good question, Bob. And one of the flyers I've handed out in the past is how can you manage healthier choices as you go to restaurants? And so that's one of them for sure. And basically it boils down to, you can ask the chef or ask your waiter or waitress, your wait staff, how you want your meal prepared. Sometimes, you know, you're the customer, right? You should be able to have a say in different ways you should ask for your meal to be prepared. And oftentimes they will definitely adhere to it because they want you as a repeat customer. That's a really good thing that people should be reminded, especially with sodium. Sodium is pretty much in everything. Any kind of a sauce has loaded sugars and sodium within that sauce, unless you make it yourself at home. But you're right, a lot of older adults also, it's really hard for them to downsize the portion of a meal when they're cooking for themselves. But then we talk about freezing methods, right? You can freeze those portions. You can have it on a different occasion. And here's how they freeze well. There's whole sessions and newsletters on things like that. So it's really timely. We started out of COVID. During COVID, I got to be much more confident in my own kitchen, and I think a lot of people were, because we had to be. But coming out of COVID, it's nice to be able to go to restaurants again and just, again, make those better choices. Not everybody, I wish they did, offer that calorie count at least on what they're ordering, because believe me, I have made decisions, better decisions, based on that information on the menu. But if it's not there, I mean, you're just kind of taking a stab in the dark, right? That's a good question. Maybe we should encourage the Colorado Restaurant Association to do that, to do exactly that.
yes. And another question on the calories for either of you, Astrid or Olga, is do we need more or fewer calories as we age? And let's start at age 60, not below that. But yeah.
You want me to chime in, Olga?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I would say there is not an increase in calorie needs as we age, depending on the situation. So for some folks, like for example, if you have chronic pulmonary conditions, that might increase your energy needs just because your lungs are working extra hard to breathe. And so that means that you're burning more calories through that process. But for a typical person, they don't necessarily need more calories as they age. They might need less, actually, just because we're more sedentary, we're not moving as much as we age. We're spending more time at home. So our bodies are not under the same amount of pressure to go to work and run around and do this and do that. And so I would say in general, our calorie needs probably decrease a little bit as we age, just the focus on different nutrients increases. And of course, with the caveat of it depends on what conditions you're living with. So if you are living with certain conditions that put extra stress on your body or make it work harder, then you might have extra needs. So it depends.
I think well said. And I think it's the quality of what your intake is going to be as well. And snacking. I mean, a lot of people like to snack between meals. And so we always talk about what are healthy snacks and what aren't such healthy snacks. If you're going to snack, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be just a handful of different kinds of seeds and nuts. And that's going to carry you through till your dinner time. And then eating earlier during, a lot of older people like to eat early, right? I'm one of those now. So I think it's a good thing because you want to be able to digest your food, between that time and the time you go to sleep. So it makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any other questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, and one other quick thing I would add, I've been reading this book recently. It's a very popular book. It's called Lessons in Chemistry. And I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but if you haven't, I would recommend reading. I mean, it's a novel, of course, but it's about a woman who is a chemist who becomes a cook on a television show, and she uses chemistry a lot in her food preparation discussions. So, I mean, you can actually learn a few things about food preparation just reading this book. I mean, it's pretty interesting. So, and it's funny too. So there's that, and then I put a link to a different a book about writing things down into the chat. So write it down, make it happen is the name of the book. It's something I read a long time ago, and what you said, Olga, is absolutely true. If you want to make sure you do things, write them down. Because just thinking about it, thoughts go away in a hurry. So the words you put on paper make a connection that helps your memory too. So with that, I want to thank Astrid and Olga for joining us today. And this has been very informative, and we very much appreciate your time and attention. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day and week. And this session will show up probably on our website next week as the recorded version. So please tell your friends and neighbors about it so that they can learn more about eating healthy. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Have a great day.
Astrid.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.